Am I the a-hole for not wanting custody of my sister's 3 kids? I, 29F, have 1 child, 11F. My sister, 32F, has 3 children, 11F, 8F, and 6F. The oldest is also autistic. About 3 years ago, my sister lost custody of her children. The girls were split up in the system for a little over a year before our mom, 52F, got custody 2 years ago. Over the last 2 years, the girls have really been thriving. They're happy, healthy, doing well in school, and overall doing great. Recently, my mom developed some unexpected health issues that are severely impacting her mobility and energy. There is no cure. She called me last week to ask if I would take the girls so they wouldn't be split up in the system again. My heart sank. I love my nieces. There's no denying that. And my daughter loves her cousins. The kids all get along great. They live on the opposite side of the country, but I visit whenever possible. I'm always planning all sorts of activities and experiences for them, encouraging them to pursue the things they love. The oldest loves art, the middle child loves gymnastics, and the youngest loves Pokémon and video games. I plan things we can all do together, and I make sure they each get one-on-one time too. I would die for these girls. But I just don't have the means to care for them full-time. My husband and I are considered a low-income family. After a decade of saving, we finally bought a small 2-bedroom townhouse, but there's barely enough room for the 3 of us, let alone another 3 children. I suggested that my mom move closer so I can help more day-to-day, but she shot that down rather quickly. Her reasons were that she didn't want to pull the kids out of their current school, but I guess it's okay if I do? And with her health issues, she didn't want to have to find a new doctor. That one is pretty valid. There's a serious healthcare crisis in my country, us moving closer to them is not an option. We would both have to find new jobs, and my husband's current job has really good benefits that we can't afford to lose. My mom is retired, so the only thing tying her to her current location is her doctor. My heart is breaking. I don't want to lose my nieces to the system again. I love the relationship we have. But I don't see how I could sustainably take on all 3 of them full-time. My mom and my sister have been calling me heartless and saying that I haven't fully thought it through, but I have. I've been thinking about it every day for over 3 years, ever since my sister first lost custody. Edit. Oh wow, I already can't keep up with the comments, so I'm going to address a couple of questions here. The dad is not in the picture. He has 2 other children from 2 other women that he also walked out on. My sister is on drugs and living in a tent, but it's got a great view of the lake. There's no other family that could help. My mother is also low income, and her retirement funds barely cover their cost of living as it is. But I will definitely be looking more into other resources and government funding. Thank you to those providing genuinely helpful advice and suggestions. I am not in the US final update. It's been a hectic month, but before I dive into the update, I wanted to address a few more comments and questions from my last post that I was just too overwhelmed to elaborate on at the time. I'm sorry if it's a bit long. You can skip to the bottom for the update. I've spoken to the kids' caseworker. She interviewed me when my mother was first trying to get custody to ask about my upbringing and ensure it would be a good environment for the kids. I reached out more recently to go over the logistics if I were to take them in. The caseworker told me she thinks I would be a great fit to give them a stable home, but I lack the adequate space needed to be approved as their guardian. She offered to look into low-income housing options in my area that would be big enough, but the wait lists are unbelievably long. Finances, yes, we would receive a decent amount of funding per child, and twice as much for the eldest, who is on the spectrum, to help cover the kids' costs. But it's money that I would be spending on food, clothes, and other day-to-day necessities, not money I could put toward a down payment on a bigger house. That financial assistance also wouldn't be considered income as far as my mortgage approval goes because it's money for the children, not me. And when I say we just bought a small townhouse, I mean we closed a little over a month ago and haven't even finished getting settled yet. It also took our entire savings to do so. We are financially sitting back at square one again. Breaking our brand new mortgage, not to mention the legal costs, realtor fees, etc., is not financially feasible. We also received first-time homebuyer rebates in our closing costs and land transfer tax, thousands of dollars, that we would have to pay back if we don't live in our new house as our primary residence for at least a year. The rent prices where I live are about twice the cost of my mortgage, so even putting aside all of those other factors, renting again still just doesn't make sense. The math is not mathing. If I could just win the lottery, my problems would be solved. Luckily, my husband has an amazing benefits plan through his work, so dental care, glasses, medications, and even therapy are all covered and would extend to the kids if we got custody. All 3 need glasses, and the youngest has a nasty habit of losing or breaking hers. Caring for special needs, I mentioned that the eldest, who is on the spectrum, struggles socially and with emotional regulation. She's also incredibly bright and appreciates her space and independence. I spent a lot of time volunteering with children who have special needs when I was in high school, and I know how difficult it can be. My niece is not what I would consider difficult. She might operate a little differently, but it's nothing outside of my abilities. My daughter is actually very similar to my niece in all of these aspects, and as I said before, my patience knows no bounds when it comes to these kids. I'm also fortunate enough to have the opportunity to work from home when needed. I do have to go into the office a couple of days a week for some tasks that can't be handled remotely, but it's flexible enough that I can be home for emergencies, sick days, or even if it's just to go see their school talent show or something. My husband, on the other hand, has a very demanding job. It's impossible to do remotely, and it's not something he can easily call in sick from. Even if I had a huge emergency, he would have to wait for his replacement to enter the control room before he could leave. Building resentment in my husband and daughter, I've talked about this with my husband extensively since my sister first lost custody. He knows how much I love those girls and would support my decision to take them in if we could make it work. While I haven't talked to my daughter about it because I don't want her to get her hopes up over something that likely can't happen, I can say that she's begged me for a sibling every year since she was a toddler. She's had a really hard time with bullies at school, and her cousins are her best friends. She would happily welcome them all with open arms, even if it meant being cramped together in one room. The update: my mom and nieces are currently visiting me. We're camping just outside my city, and we seem to have found our compromise. My mom is going to take the year to scrape together whatever money she can for a down payment to move closer to me. She's also going to ask her doctor about getting referrals to a doctor in my city. In the meantime, I've offered to take the girls during major school breaks, summer, spring break, and Christmas. The house will still be very cramped during those weeks, but we spend the majority of the summer camping anyway, so the tight quarters won't be for very long periods of time. My husband, I truly don't know what I did to deserve him, has offered to work as much overtime as he's allowed to help us replenish our savings and hopefully get a bigger place when it's time to renew our mortgage. My work won't let me do any overtime. On a totally unrelated note, does anyone have any advice or insight on how to get into selling feet pics? Asking for a friend. My sister found my original post and has been blowing up my phone with nasty texts and voice messages. She even made some wild Facebook posts about what a traitor of a sister I am. I simply don't have the energy to listen to her 2 cents on the matter, so I'm ignoring her on all fronts. We definitely can't take custody anytime soon, but we haven't shut down the possibility of taking them in the future when it makes more sense. I think this possibility is what's keeping my mother cooperative for the time being. This will likely be the last update unless the plan for my mom's move next year falls apart, knock on wood. Thank you to everyone who gave genuinely helpful advice and support. Time to go swimming.